When the Dominican Republic achieved independence in 1844, it was relatively late in comparison to other Latin American countries. This because after declaring independence from Spanish rule in the early 1820s, they were soon conquered by the neighboring country of Haiti, who would go on to rule the eastern half of the island for the next 22 years. Now, during the South American Wars of Independence, the collapse of a centralized power in the Spanish crown led to the rise of several caudillos across Latin America, with this term often being translated into English as warlord or strongman. However, despite being autocratic, caudillos were not all-powerful, as their base of support was often maintained through a complicated network of formal support and informal patronage, where in exchange for being made leader, they would have to provide their thousands of followers with economic stability, military success, or adherence to a political or religious ideology. As a result of this, caudillos were constantly confronted by threats to their power in the forms of rebellions by disgruntled supporters, as well as rival caudillos, who could take over their base of support by offering them a better deal. And during the First Dominican Republic, the two most prominent caudillos were Pedro Santa Anna and Buenaventura Baez, with both Santa Anna and Baez serving as president of the country multiple times over the next 20 years. And during this time, they constantly competed against each other to gain international support for the newly independent country, with there being hopes that a foreign power could help to stabilize the local economy through trade, bring political order through diplomatic relations, as well as provide military assistance against any further incursions from the Haitian government, who regularly threatened to reinvade the eastern half of the island, with the two most prominent international options being either France or the United States. However, by the early 1860s, both attempts had largely failed, as by that time, the French Empire was busy fighting a war with Mexico and wanted to maintain ties with Haiti, while the US was engaged in a civil war between the North and the South. As a result, a third option emerged of returning to their old colonial power, Spain, with President Santa Anna and his allies negotiating for the Dominican Republic to be annexed back to the Spanish in 1861. With the hope being that this time, under imperial Spanish protection, local Dominican officials will be given more freedoms to govern themselves and build up the local economy. However, under Spanish rule, Santa Anna's powers were slowly diminished, as his local Dominican allies in the government, military, and even the Catholic Church were gradually replaced by officials and bureaucrats from Spanish Cuba, Spanish Puerto Rico, and Spain. Eventually, as a result of the loss of local support, Santa Anna resigned from office and was replaced by another Spanish official. Feeling disenfranchised, many Dominican nationalists soon began rebelling against Spain, leading to the outbreak of the Restoration War. This lasted until 1865, when the Spanish finally left the island, and the Second Dominican Republic was established. Now, this was not the last time the local Dominican government attempted to join another country. This is because when Baez became president again, in 1868, he negotiated another annexation plan, but this time with US President Ulysses S. Grant, in the hopes that this more powerful foreign power could help stabilize the country. However, these plans eventually fell through, as it ended up being rejected by the United States Senate. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. If you'd like to have early access and give feedback on this type of content, please consider joining the Patreon. And as always, thanks so much to my patrons, Untroid, NMS, and DC. Thank you so much for the support you have given me so far.